In this tutorial, I'm going to be discussing Excel's date and time functions. Now, the easiest way to enter a date in Excel is simply just to type it in like this. So we'll put in today's date. Now, the thing to understand about typing in the date is that it's static. It doesn't change as the current date changes. And that's useful in some instances, because for instance, if you're entering date of birth like these here, you don't want them to change as the current date changes. Now, if you want to see all your options with date and time in Excel, you go along the top here to the formulas tab and click that, and then you find date and time and you drop down that menu, and that gives you a whole lot of options here. Now, if I chose this one here, which is called today, and just click that, it puts the formula in there. Now, I could either type it in like that or select it off that menu as I've done now. And then all I do is click OK. And there we go. There's today's date and time. But this one will be dynamic. So tomorrow it'll be the 8th of the 7th, 2023, and so on. So that's pretty handy if you want a date on your Excel spreadsheet that is always the current date. For certain formulas you might need that. Now, if I want the current date and or time, I just select the cell that I want to put it in, and this time I'll just start typing. If you know the syntax, you can just start typing. So it's equals, and the formula for this is now, and that will give you an open bracket there. You close the bracket, press enter, and there we go, today's date and the current time. And this is dynamic, so as the time changes, so this will click over, and as the date changes, this will click over. Now, a word about formatting. If I changed the formatting here to something else, let's say for instance I just wanted the date. So if we click onto there and I right click, format cells, and then date, and then I select a version of the date that I want. OK. Now you see the time is missing, it's just the date. And similarly, if you haven't formatted it correctly, say for instance I formatted it for a number and not a date, and I say OK, now you can see there's a number there, and Excel uses numbers to do subtractions and adding of dates. So there's always a numerical version of a date. Now, to get that back to the date version, you have to format it correctly. So just to show you what formatting does. So format cells again, go to date, select the type that you want, say OK, and we're back to the date there. So remember, formatting is very important. So if you get a funny result, check your formatting. I've done it a few times. It's taken me a while for the penny to drop. Right, now moving along. Now, it's often the case where you need to find out what the difference in time is between two dates. And in this example I've got here's a whole number of employees, their date of birth listed here, and the date they started employment. So for instance, I might want to know the age of these employees. Now, to get the age, what I'd have to do is subtract their birth date from the current date. So I'll need a dynamic date here, because as time goes by they're going to get older, so I need a date that's changing with time. So that's useful. So I wouldn't use the static date, I'd use the dynamic date for this calculation. So select the cell first that you want your answer in, and I'm going to show you a formula that's not in the formula list here of date and time. It's not one of these. It's an extra one, so this is a bonus. So this one is, the syntax is equals to show it's a formula, then it's date diff, in other words the difference between two dates. Then you open your brackets. All you need to do is put your two dates in, but start with the earliest date and then the latest date after that. So the earliest date would be this person's date of birth there, and then a comma to separate them, and then the dynamic more recent date, which is the current date. There we go. Now if I want to drag this formula down and populate all these cells in the column with the same formula, then I have to fix my date range here. So to do that, you press F4 and you'll see dollar signs appear there, and then comma, and then in inverted commas, if you want your answer to be in years, you type Y, close inverted commas, close brackets. If you want it in months, you type M, and if you want it in days, you type D in those inverted commas there. Now press enter, and there we go, 39 years. So that's the person's age, and that's going to change as the date changes. So in a year's time, this person will be 39 because we've fixed the date range as a dynamic date. Then if I want to drag this down, hopefully it's going to work. There we go. So now I can drag all those formulas down because I fixed this date range here. So similarly, now this will be a different formula, finding out the difference between two dates, and this one is going to have a fraction of a year like it's got there. Start typing equals year fraction, there it is there. So once you see it there, you can double click and there it comes up there. Then it gives you a little prompt here on what you have to do. You have to put in your start date, your end date. Our start date is always our oldest date, the date that they started their employment, and then comma, and then we'll use the current date because we want this to be dynamic, because as time goes by they'll have more and more years service. And also we want to fix this date range, so we go F4 again so that we can drag it down, close brackets, press enter, and there we go. That's the number of years service for that employee, and then we drag it down again. Because we fixed that date range, we're allowed to drag it down, and there we go. So we filled in all those. So that's pretty useful. Now sometimes when you're using formula with dates, you might want just the days represented in your formula, or you might want the months, or you might want the year. Now to do that, there's a simple formula for that. I'll just delete these. So let's say we wanted to extract the day, so you'll go equals to show it's a formula. We just want the day, we do that, double click, and then they'll want the date that we're referencing there, close brackets, enter. So there we are, the day is 2 there, number 2. Okay, then the next one, let's say we want the month, so we'll go equals month, there it is, double click, and we'll reference that date, close brackets, enter, and there we go, it's the 7th month, and there's the 7th month. Then we want the year, so it's the same story again, equals year, double click, reference that date, close brackets, and enter, and the year is 1961. Now in some cases you'll only want the 61, so there is a way of doing that. I'll just delete this. You just go equals, right, here it comes up, double click, you select the number you want, comma, and you don't want the 2 characters on the left, you just want the 2 characters on the right, so you write 2 for the number of characters, close brackets, enter, 61, there we go. And similarly, if I typed equals left, selected the number, comma, 2, it would give me 19, the left 2 characters of that number. So that's pretty handy if you just need part of the date in your particular formula. Right, here's some more examples of how to calculate the number of days different between two particular dates. Firstly, just a simple difference, not worrying about days of the week or anything like that. We just type enter to show it's a formula, and then we'll say the end date minus the start date, and that gives us 276 days between those two, counting every single day including weekends. Now if we don't want weekends, then we can use a particular formula. As I said, we can either drop it down from the formulas tab at the top here, and we look for net work days, so only work days will be included. Now when you click on there, they give you this nice little form to fill out. So we take our start date there, we take our end date there, and then if you've got any holidays you can add them there. If it's just weekends that you want to leave out, you don't have to fill that in. So let's say OK, and there we go, 198 working days between those two dates. Now if we wanted to exclude public holidays as well, we can use the same formula. If you know the syntax, you just start typing. So we want net work days, there it comes. Now you've got two versions. One is just net work days, the other one is international, because some countries don't have the same weekends as we do. So if you don't want to use the normal weekend, you use that one. If you're okay with the normal weekend, you can use just net work days. So let's do that, and then we do our start date, a comma to separate, then our end date, a comma, and then we can select, I've got a list of just fictitious public holidays here, add them in, then you close brackets, press enter. Now you'll notice there are 3 holidays, but it's only changed the total by 2. It's only dropped the total by 2, and the reason for that is one of the public holidays has fallen on a weekend, so it only counts at once. So it's very clever, it sorts that problem out for you as well. Now for instance your weekends didn't fall on the usual Saturday and Sunday, or if say you were a casual worker and you only worked certain days of the week, say Monday, Tuesday and Friday, then you need to use the international formula for calculating the difference between two dates. So let's go drop down there and we'll select Network Days International. First of all it wants the start date, so we'll click there, and then the end date, click there. Then it wants the weekends. Now in this line that says weekend, we've got to put a formula for the days that we work. Now the formula is based on a series of 7 zeros or ones. 0 is a work day, 1 is a non-work day, but it all has to be in inverted commas. So you open inverted commas, then we're going Monday and Tuesday are work days. You always start on a Monday, so it's 0, 0 for Monday and Tuesday. Then we don't work Wednesday and Thursday, so that's 1, 1. Then we work Friday, so that's 0. We don't work Saturday, Sunday, so that's 1, 1 again. Close inverted commas. Now if you wanted to put holidays into the equation as well, then you just get your holidays in a series like this and select them, and once you've selected them, then you can say OK. So there we go, 116 work days, only counting Monday, Tuesday and Friday as work days, and also excluding weekends and holidays. So let's move on. Here's another example that comes up quite often, is if you've got a date and you want to add 30 days to it and find out what the new date is. So first we select the cell where we want our answer to be, and then we'll say equals the start date, and we're going to add a certain number of days to the start date. So what we can do is go plus and then select the cell where you're going to put the number of days. If you select that cell like that, then you can change it, and it'll update your answer. So if you want to change the number of days to 14 or something like that, your date will be updated. I'll show you that in a minute. Enter. You can see it's exactly the same date because I haven't added any days here. So let's just say we're going to add 14 days. Now watch, this date will update. Here we go. So that's updatable now. You can change this anytime you like. Now another thing you can do, once you've got your due date, you can work out how many days are left until the due date. So that's quite useful if you're paying accounts or something like that. You'll know how many days grace you've still got. But to do that, you'll need this to be dynamic. So what you do is equals to show it's a formula, then your due date, which is fixed, and then you subtract from the due date the current day. Now this date will have to be dynamic, so you won't just type it in. You'll use the formula equals today to get that date, but I've already done that, so this date is dynamic. So we click on there and then we press enter, and there we go. There's 5 days left between those 2 days, and tomorrow when this one changes, when this one clicks over to the next day, this will drop to 4. So that's very handy. So you've got a dynamic days left column there as well. Now in this one, obviously it's taking all the days including weekends and holidays. Now if you wanted to exclude weekends and holidays, you could use another formula. So if we select our square where we want our formula, we'll go to the drop down and find one called Workday. Click on that one, and again they give you a nice little form to fill in. So we'll click the start date there, the number of days, let's say 14. We could put 14 in there, or we could put it in another cell and select that cell, and then that would come up there. The advantage of doing that, like we did here, is if you change the cell, if you change the number of days in the cell, it will update your due date. So, but we're not doing that for the moment. And then if we wanted to add holidays, we could do that as well. So if we click onto there and we just select our holidays, here we go, and then that's all done. And there we go. Now you'll notice it's given me a number, and as I said earlier, Excel works with numbers when it's adding and subtracting dates. So we have to convert that, and the way we convert that is to right click, format cells, we find the date format, select a style of date that you want, click OK, and there we have it. It's converted that number into a date. So that's pretty handy as well. Then there's another one that's worth discussing, is the EDATE. Now the EDATE is a way of adding months to a date or subtracting months from a date, and then it'll display the end date as your answer. So you click the cell that you want your answer in, and then we'll just type in the syntax. So equals EDATE, double click, select the start date, comma to separate, select the number of months, close brackets, enter, and there we go. And then if I change the months to 7, then it will change this date as well. There we go. Now finally, just a couple of useful shortcuts. If you want to just add the current date, a useful shortcut is Control and semicolon, but that date is fixed, so it doesn't update daily. If If you wanted to update daily, obviously you got to use the formula today. And similarly, if you wanted to add the current time, the shortcut is Control, Shift, and semicolon all at once. And there we go, there's the current time displayed there. Now, if you found this useful, please like and share this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. And if you have any comments or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Just scroll right down to the bottom and you'll find the comments section there. Thank you very much for watching.